Okay, so next up we have Dom Carter, who's the Group Chief Commercial Officer of News UK. And Dom is going to be talking about human media. Dom, it's great to see you. Welcome.
Morning, everyone. I'm Dominic Carter. I'm the Group Chief Commercial Officer for News UK. I've been asked here to talk about how we're moving forward after some of the most turbulent times in the long history of our brands and of our titles. And obviously, for many of us, we know how difficult it's been. But the great thing about working with brands like The Times, which started in 1785, is that I guess whatever happens, you know they've survived worse. That they and us will get through this just like they did with previous plagues, pandemics, wars, and crises over the past 235 years. And that's reassuring on one level. But it doesn't mean that we can just sit back and wait for the good times to return. And even when they do, those good times are going to be very different to what we experienced before the pandemic struck. So however established your brand is, disruptions like we've seen over the past year make you think very hard about the future of your business. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. One of the things that stood out during the pandemic is the story of people and how they've overcome adversity in trying times. And it doesn't matter whether it's Captain Tom or the millions of fabulous NHS staff or your local volunteer network, it's the stories of people that have cut through the most and have brought the country together. And of the most important things, one of the most important things, I guess, about our business is that it's all about people. We call it human media. It's great content created by people with craft. Trusted, validated news written by journalists with years of experience, knowledge, and specialism. Radio and television entertainment created by presenters with a natural ability to connect with their audiences and their viewers and their listeners. It's about real humans, human audiences, real audiences that have a genuine connection with our title brands, who trust and relate to our business, to our writers, and to our presenters, who engage with our content deeply and in a sustained consumption moment. And I guess it's about human emotions that connect these two things. We know that great content of our trusted brands inspires an emotional response in the people who read, watch, or listen to them. Because our audiences have a long-term brand relationship with the Times, the Sun, or Virgin, or Times Radio, they trust our content and invest in it emotionally. So when they read a sad story or listen to an uplifting show, that emotional context impacts on them in a way it doesn't with algorithmically driven timelines of fake news and misinformation. We can see it in the time that they spend reading or listening, in the comments they make and the feedback that they give through polls and emails. And it's the relationship and the trust that they bestow on us that ensures that we have to deliver against all the values that they expect, and we therefore accept our responsibilities as a media organisation to be a force for good. The emotional context is central to the future of our business. Emotional engagement is one of the reasons that people stay loyal to our brands, but it's also a vital aspect of the way in which they respond to advertising and the way they see or listen to. And over the past few years, we've commissioned a lot of research pieces looking at how emotional context impacts on advertising response, and the results have been pretty surprising. Initially, we looked at whether emotional congruence was the source of this power. Does a happy ad perform better next to a happy story? In truth, it does, but the whole answer is just not that simple. Emotional context has an unprecedented impact on advertising response. It drives increased advertising engagement, higher click-through rates, and enhances brand familiarity. But it's not linear. It's not just about congruence. It turns out, for example, that a fearful story next to an uplifting ad also drives an outsized response, something that should be of particular interest to those brands and agencies that have used the blunt instrument of block lists to prevent advertising appearing against stories that could be perceived as negative. Unpicking the exact DNA of how emotion and response plays out is something that we're working on now. But what we do know is that capturing these emotional responses and mapping advertising planning on top is going to be a fundamental part of how we work as a business going forward. But once upon a time, the story of any business's future was about its products and its plan to grow, basically how it's going to make more money. But it can't just be about that anymore. So rightly, the world expects more from its corporate citizens, and we're working hard to lead some of that change. Firstly, it's about our role and that of the wider media industry in helping to combat climate change. I think it's an interesting area because the media industry as a whole is not a particularly high carbon one. we use paper and in some cases plastics in our products, and we have a footprint in our offices and our delivery network. But solving these problems are the table stakes of our engagement in the climate crisis. We use 100% recycled paper. We've dumped plastic wraps from our products. We're reducing and mitigating the CO2 output of the infrastructure. And all of that is great, but we've got a lot more to do. As an audience business, that more has to be about our role in communicating solutions to the climate crisis, not just to our employees, but to the millions and millions of people who interact with our content each month. The Sun has recently run its Green Week campaign, which combines environmentally friendly advice with money-saving tips, giving an explanation to its readers how they can play their part in helping climate change. For the Times, we've run a very successful clean air campaign, which has directly influenced government policy in this regard. And it's these things where we and any other media business can make a really outsized contribution to the changing behaviours and playing our part in the fight against climate change. Secondly, it's about how we contribute to the debate about diversity. And again, there are two different levels on this as well. We've got to get our own house in order. And as an organisation, we're pushing hard to make ourselves more representative of the society we operate in. We've established a 50-50-20 target for gender and ethnic diversity, and we're putting a huge amount of effort into delivering that over the next year or two. And that's not to say it's easy. A lack of representation in the media industry is a long-term issue for any business, which means it's hard baked into the gender and ethnic makeup of all of our staff and can't be changed overnight. But consistent communication and measurement will definitely change it through time. We can't fire our way to a diverse workforce, so we have to be clear on how we hire our way in that direction, and not just to do the right thing, but to ensure that we have a business that's here for the next 235 years. It's about building more diversity in all forms across the business, whether through things like our recent partnership with the government Kickstart programme, which will see up to 100 long-term unemployed people given the opportunity to work at News UK, our Roots to Leadership project, which supports all of our staff on the issues of bias and allyship, or our News Academy and apprenticeship programme, which will see thousands of young people being given access to digital skills and work experience. But perhaps more importantly, our role in encouraging diversity has to be more outward-looking. Media owners are a mirror through which people see the world, and we need to ensure that we're reflecting a more diverse picture. So we have teams working throughout our organisation to make sure that our language and our focus as a company is in helping to communicate a positive message about diversity, and our content speaks in a way that is inclusive, whilst also respecting the overwhelming priority, which is to create engaging, accurate, and trusted news. Our recent decision to drop the word BAME from our titles because of the offence to ethnic groups is a good example of some of our progress. We need to ensure that we understand the different perspectives of all of our readers and listeners. And without more diverse teams in our business, I dare say that we'll begin to lose credibility amongst many of the people that we reach. So the key to all of this is that we view diversity not just as a challenge to be faced. It's primarily an opportunity to bring new ideas, attitudes, and skills into our organisation, to make sure that we continue to reach and engage with our audiences, whoever they may be. The way the world is today, it'd probably be foolhardy of me to make much in the way of predictions. However, I do hope that listening to me for the last 5 minutes has been helpful in giving you a picture of how News UK is going forward. Thanks for your time.
Hi, Dom. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Long time. Thank you for that.
Mm.
So how, taking up your last topic around diversity and insight and how it reflects as a mirror, how does the organisation think about that versus obviously the need to sell newspapers or get eyeballs? How do you find that balance in a publishing organisation?
Well, I think you got to look at our business through time and in the future, and you look at the society and today. And this is really sparked through the murder of George Floyd last year, and the response not just from ethnic communities, but through different demographics and across the country and across the world. I think what's very clear to all of us is that unless you address the diversity, in your newsrooms and across the business, you probably don't have much of a business going forward. So it's the right thing to do for your business, not just for today, because it's reflecting public opinion, which is what we do, but it's also about the right thing for your business in the future.
Absolutely. Well said. Thank you, Dom. Good to see you.